These right here are crispy bacon salmon bites. These are irresistibly tasty, they're so easy to make and don't take long at all. Let's get straight into it. Starting out, we're going to need our salmon, obviously. This right here is one whole side of salmon. It weighs roughly 1.6 kilos. The amount and weights of this recipe really depend on how many you want to make. This recipe makes about 20 to 25 salmon bites, and what we're going to do is just slice these into about 2 to 3 inch fillets. You don't have to use a whole side if you don't want to. You can just use store-bought fillets, but if you are slicing them, you should have something that looks like this. Now once that's done, slice these into 4 even-sized fillets, that way they'll cook at the same time. We don't want them to be odd sizes, and with that you should have something that looks like this, which is roughly about 2 to 3 inches as well. With the salmon now prepared, we can make our salmon spice rub. This right here is 40 grams of brown sugar, 6 grams of smoked paprika for those warm smoky notes, 2.5 grams of sweet paprika just for that colour and those flavours, then 5 grams of onion powder, 5 grams of garlic powder for the concentrated flavour, 1.5 grams of yellow mustard powder for that nice subtle taste, 1 gram of cayenne or chili powder, as well as salt and pepper to taste. With that in, just use a whisk or even a spoon just to mix this around until everything's evenly combined and not clumped up. And once that's all done, we can then just pop this aside for just a quick second. I'm using streaky bacon for this recipe, roughly 10 rashers. You can also use middle bacon, and I know some people might be thinking bacon and salmon don't work together, but please do not knock this until you try it. As for these, we're just going to slice them in half, and we want roughly 20 even-sized strips that will roughly fit around the salmon pieces that we've already sliced. Let's then add the salmon to a mixing bowl, and then we're going to use the spice rub we made before and add in about 4 tablespoons worth. There will be some left over as we are going to use this later on in the recipe for something else, but once that's in, just use your clean hands and gently massage the salmon. It's a delicate creature, can easily be broken up, so just be a little bit gentle on it, but you should have something that looks like this. Now with everything done, we can then grab an individual piece of salmon as well as an individual piece of bacon, and then just gently wrap the bacon around the salmon, making sure it's overlapped and completely covered, and then we can use toothpicks just to pierce and lock this together, making sure it's nice and tight. If you don't use toothpicks, they will fall apart, so definitely do use them. And with that all done, you will have a plate that looks like this, which is now ready for the last step before they go into the oven. With the bacon wrapped salmon bites now, just rub them in the remaining spice rub. This spice rub recipe is the exact amount you need for the amount of salmon bites that we've made, so there won't be anything left over, but you can definitely make more and store it in a container. Once they are completely coated, transfer them over to a baking tray lined with parchment paper, and then we can take these over to our preheated oven that's at 180 degrees Celsius or 350 degrees Fahrenheit and bake these for 6 minutes. Now in the meantime, we can make our bourbon barbecue sauce. This right here is 30 milliliters of a bourbon of your choice. Use an igniter just to get this nice and flambéed. Just burn off the alcohol for about 30 seconds before adding in 20 grams of brown sugar, 80 grams of tomato ketchup, 50 grams of American mustard or yellow mustard, and make sure you scrape out these bowls so we're not wasting anything, 20 milliliters of apple cider vinegar, and 30 milliliters of maple syrup. Also, if you can't consume alcohol, just completely skip the bourbon part. Now with that in, give this a really good mix through for those flavours to become friends and evenly combined. This should just come to a simmer naturally. What we're going to do is once it is at a simmer, just cook it for about 2 to 3 minutes and just let it reduce and become nice and thick. Once that is done, you can check it for seasoning and adjust if necessary with a little bit of salt and ground white pepper. Bring it back to a simmer, let it get nice and thick, and you should have something that looks like this that can then be removed from the stovetop. After 6 minutes on the salmon, use a pastry brush just to base that glaze over the salmon bites, making sure you flip them over as well, getting them completely coated. Once you have that done, place them back into the oven for about 6 to 7 minutes, not 67 minutes, until they're beautifully golden, that bacon's crispy, and that glaze smells and looks fantastic. Let them slightly cool before removing the toothpicks. Make sure you definitely do remove them, you don't want to be eating that. And with that all done, you should have this delicious looking bacon salmon bite that's dripping with that glaze. It's beautifully golden and they smell incredible too. Before we serve them up, there's a few more things to do. Sprinkle over some black and white sesame seeds. You can toast them for extra flavour if you wanted to. Spring onion or scallion to taste as well. Then just stack these up onto any serving platter or plate that you may have. Drizzle over any of those pan juices as well, just for extra flavour and a little bit of presentation. But right here is the final product. These bacon salmon bites look and smell delicious. I did also want to get a close-up shot for you guys just so you can see them a little bit more clearer. These look absolutely delicious and I can't wait for you to try this recipe. Now with everything done, there's only one thing left to do. The best part, that is, we can then dig in. These are absolutely delicious. There is so much flavor going on. They're sweet, they're salty, they're crispy from the bacon on the outside, and then in the center, it's just so juicy and delicious. Definitely do make this recipe. They're absolutely incredible. If you don't want to use so much sugar, you can cut it down. Just bear in mind it won't be as good. It will be a little bit less sweet, and obviously you won't get that texture from the crunch or the caramelization on the outside. I do recommend following the recipe as it is, but of course, you always make substitutes where you need to. If you enjoyed this video, hit that like button, consider subscribing, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.